Coin Collector's World, the channel where we explore the hidden treasures in your pocket change. Today we are talking about the 1998 D Washington quarter dollar, a coin that might look ordinary at first glance, but depending on its condition, rarity, and errors, it could be worth a surprising amount of money. So if you have a 1998 quarter with a D mint mark, make sure you stick around until the end because we are going to cover its history, design details, minting information, grading, varieties, errors, and of course the current market value that collectors are paying right now. Let's begin with a little background. The Washington Quarter series started in 1932 to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington, the first President of the United States. The obverse of the coin features the famous profile portrait of Washington designed by John Flanagan. On the reverse we see the majestic bald eagle with wings spread, holding arrows and olive branches, symbolizing both strength and peace. This reverse design was used until the year 1998, which makes the 1998 quarter especially interesting because it was the very last year before the 50-state quarters program began in 1999. In other words, the 1998 D quarter is the final regular eagle reverse design from the Denver Mint before a new era of coinage started. Now let's talk about the minting details. In 1998 the Denver Mint, represented by the letter D on the obverse of the coin just to the right of Washington's ponytail, struck more than 821 million quarters. That's a very high mintage, which means that most 1998 D quarters are common in circulation and usually worth only face value of 25 cents. But here's where things get interesting. Not all coins are created equal. Condition, rarity, strike quality, and error varieties can push the value of a coin much higher, sometimes even into the hundreds or thousands of dollars. When it comes to condition, collectors pay top dollar for coins in mint state. These are coins that have never been used in circulation and still have their original luster. A 1998 D quarter graded MS65 by PCGS or NGC, which means gem uncirculated, can sell for around $10 to $20. If you go up to MS66, the value jumps to around $50 to $100. MS67 is extremely rare for this year and mint mark, and coins in that grade can bring over $500 at auction. The highest grades like MS68 are almost unheard of, and if you ever find one, you could be holding a coin worth several $1,000s because collectors are willing to pay a premium for the finest examples, but condition is not the only factor. Error coins from 1998 D are also highly sought after. Some examples include double die obverse, where the lettering or date appears doubled. Another type is off-center strikes, where the design is not aligned properly and part of it is missing. You may also come across clipped planchets where a piece of the coin's edge is cut off, or coins struck on the wrong planchet, like being struck on a dime planchet instead of a quarter. These errors can sell anywhere from $50 to several $100s depending on the type and visibility of the mistake. In some extreme cases, dramatic errors have sold for well over $1,000. Now let's talk about the market today. With the rising interest in coin collecting and the nostalgia factor of the Washington Eagle reverse quarters, demand for high-grade 1998 D coins has been steady. Circulated examples without errors are still only worth face value, so 25 cents. But uncirculated rolls and mint sets can bring a premium. A brilliant uncirculated single coin might be worth $1 to $5, while certified and graded examples in MS66 or higher can fetch anywhere between $50 and $1,000 depending on the buyer. Error coins also continue to sell strongly at coin shows, auctions, and online platforms like eBay and Heritage Auctions. So if you have a 1998 D quarter, here's what you should do. First, examine it carefully under good lighting and with a magnifying glass to see if it has any doubling, off-center strikes, or clipped edges. Second, check the condition. If the coin looks brand new with no scratches or wear, consider submitting it to a grading service like PCGS or NGC. Even though most are common, the few that grade MS67 or higher can be worth serious money. Finally, keep in mind that this coin marks the end of an era. Because it was the final year of the Eagle reverse, collectors who build complete Washington quarter sets will always need a 1998 D in high grade to finish their collection, and that helps keep the value strong. In summary, the 1998 D Washington quarter dollar might be a common coin in circulation, but under the right circumstances it can be worth a lot of money. In circulated condition it is just 25 cents. In uncirculated condition it can be worth a few dollars. In gem grades like MS66 or MS67 it can bring hundreds of dollars. With dramatic mint errors the value can climb into the thousands. So check your change, search through old rolls, and never overlook the coins from the late 90s because you might just find a hidden treasure sitting in your pocket. Today we are talking about one of the most common looking coins that might be sitting in your change jar right now, but if you know what to look for it could actually be worth a surprising amount of money. I'm talking about the 1972 Washington quarter with the D mint mark. At first glance this coin doesn't look rare at all because millions of them were minted at the Denver Mint. In fact, over 311 million 1972 D quarters were produced. With numbers that high you would think there is nothing special about them. But the truth is that certain examples of this coin can be extremely valuable to collectors, and in today's video I'll explain why. Let's start with the basics. The Washington quarter has been in circulation since 1932. The obverse or front side features the portrait of George Washington designed by John Flanagan. Above Washington's head is the word Liberty and below is the date 1972. To the left you'll find the phrase "In God We Trust." The mint mark, which in this case is the letter D for Denver, appears on the obverse to the right of Washington's ponytail just behind the ribbon. The reverse of the coin shows the classic eagle design, also by Flanagan, with the words United States of America and E pluribus unum above and the denomination quarter dollar below. Now here's the interesting part. Most 1972 D quarters are only worth their face value of 25 cents if they are worn and circulated. But collectors are always searching for coins that are in exceptionally high condition or that show unusual minting errors. And when those are found the values jump dramatically. Let's first talk about condition. The highest grades are given to coins that are essentially flawless. Collectors use a grading scale called the Sheldon scale, which runs from 1 to 70. A coin graded mint state 60 or higher means it is uncirculated and shows no wear. A coin that grades 65 or 66 is already considered gem quality. But when a coin reaches mint state 67 or 68 it becomes very rare because so few examples survive in that condition. For the 1972 D quarter, most coins have scratches, contact marks, or dull luster from the way they were struck and handled at the mint. Finding one in pristine condition is extremely hard, and that's what makes them valuable. Auction records tell the story. For example, a 1972 D quarter graded MS68 by PCGS has sold for over $3,000 at auction. Even coins graded MS67 can bring prices in the hundreds of dollars. So if you happen to find a shiny 1972 D quarter in pocket change that looks nearly perfect, it might be worth submitting to a grading service because the difference between face value and collector value could be enormous, but condition is not the only thing to look for. Minting errors also add tremendous value. Some 1972 quarters show doubled die obverse where the lettering or numbers appear doubled from a slight misalignment in the dies. These errors are rare, and when collectors discover them they pay big money. Other types of errors include off-center strikes where part of the design is missing, clipped planchets where a piece of the coin's edge is cut off, or die cracks where extra lines appear across the surface. Any unusual feature like this can turn an ordinary quarter into a treasure. Another factor to consider is that coin collecting has been growing in popularity over the last few years, which drives demand and market value higher. Right now the market for Washington quarters is strong, especially for coins from the 1970s in exceptional condition. As of today, a typical circulated 1972 D quarter is worth just 25 cents. An uncirculated example might be worth a few dollars. A certified MS65 coin can bring $20 to $50. An MS67 example can sell for several $100s. And the absolute top pop coins, meaning the highest graded coins known, can reach into the thousands of dollars at auction.so. How do you know if your coin is special? The first step is to take a close look at the condition. If it looks heavily worn, it will probably only be worth face value. If it looks sharp with no wear and has strong luster, it might be uncirculated. Use a magnifying glass to check for errors, especially on the lettering, numbers, and edges. If you think your coin is high grade or shows a possible error, then consider sending it to a professional grading service such as PCGS or NGC. Certified coins are easier to sell and usually bring higher prices because buyers trust the grade. Remember that while the 1972 D quarter is common overall, the key is finding one in that rare combination of flawless condition or unique error. That's what transforms it from pocket change into a collectible worth serious money. Imagine turning a quarter that's been sitting in a jar for decades into several hundred or even several $1,000s. That's the fun of coin collecting and why it pays to check your change carefully. So to wrap it up, the 1972 D Washington quarter is normally worth only 25 cents, but in mint state grades it can be worth anywhere from $20 up to several hundred. And in the absolute best grades with an MS-68 label, it can be worth over $3,000. Add in the possibility of rare errors and you've got a coin that definitely deserves a second look. Today we are going to talk about a fascinating and very collectible coin from the mid-1960s, the 1966 Washington quarter dollar. This is one of those coins that on the surface looks very ordinary, but in reality it has a much deeper story, and in some cases can be worth far more than its face value of 25 cents. If you have some of these old quarters lying around in your change jar, in your dresser drawer, or maybe inherited from a family collection, you will want to pay close attention, because you just might have a hidden treasure sitting right in front of you. So let's start with some background. The 1966 Washington quarter comes from a very unique period in American coinage history. Just 1 year earlier, in 1965, the United States Mint made one of the biggest changes in modern coinage when it removed silver from the quarter. Before that, quarters dated 1964 and earlier were made of 90% silver and 10% copper. But because silver prices were climbing and people were hoarding silver coins, the mint had to change the composition. Starting in 1965, quarters were made from a copper-nickel clad composition, which is what we still use today. Now the 1966 Washington quarter has another unique feature. If you look closely at this coin, you will notice that there is no mint mark. That is correct. Quarters dated 1965, 1966, and 1967 were struck without mint marks, no matter which mint produced them. This was intentional. The mint wanted to discourage coin hoarding during that time of transition from silver to clad coinage. Collectors back then were setting aside too many coins by mint mark, and the mint hoped that by removing mint marks altogether for 3 years, people would stop pulling them from circulation. Because of this, every single 1966 Washington quarter you see will have no mint mark. That does not mean they are rare by themselves, since hundreds of millions were made. In fact, the total mintage for 1966 was more than 820 million pieces, so the vast majority are still very common. However, what makes this coin interesting and potentially valuable is the condition it survives in and whether or not it has special errors or varieties. Let's talk about condition first. A circulated 1966 Washington quarter that you might find in pocket change is usually only worth its face value of 25 cents. If it has a lot of wear, scratches, or discoloration, it is generally not valuable to collectors. But when you get into uncirculated examples, the story changes. Coins that were set aside early and remain bright, lustrous, and free of heavy marks can bring in a premium. A typical uncirculated example, graded mint state 63, might sell for around $4 to $6 today. If you move higher into mint state 65, which means the coin is very well struck with strong luster and only a few minor contact marks, the price can jump to about $20 to $30. Now here is where it gets exciting. Superb gems, graded mint state 66 or mint state 67, are much harder to find. At mint state 66 you might see prices between $100 and $200 depending on eye appeal. At mint state 67, the coin becomes a condition rarity and can easily sell for $1,000 or more at auction. The record prices for 1966 Washington quarters are well into the several $1,000 range for coins graded in the top population levels by professional grading services. Another area to watch for is special mint sets. In 1965, 1966, and 1967 the mint did not release traditional proof sets or mint sets. Instead they issued something called a special mint set, often abbreviated SMS. These sets contained specially struck coins that were better than regular circulation strikes but not quite the same as proofs. The 1966 Washington quarter in a special mint set often has a smoother surface, stronger strike, and satiny luster. While common examples might only be worth a few dollars, coins with deep cameo contrast, where the design is frosty and the fields are mirror-like, can bring in much higher values. Some of the best SMS quarters from 1966 graded with deep cameo designations have sold for hundreds of dollars. Now let's move on to errors and varieties, because this is where some of the biggest money can be found. Collectors love error coins, and the 1966 Washington quarter does not disappoint. Examples exist with double die obverse errors, where the letters in Liberty or the date show noticeable doubling. There are also off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and coins struck on the wrong planchet such as a dime or even a foreign coin blank. These dramatic errors can sell for hundreds and sometimes even thousands of dollars depending on rarity and eye appeal. Another variety worth mentioning is coins with full strike details, often referred to as full drum lines or strong details on Washington's hair. Although not officially recognized like full bands on Mercury dimes, collectors still pay extra for sharp details on these quarters, since most strikes from the mid-60s were relatively weak. So what about the current market value today in 2025? As of right now, circulated examples of the 1966 Washington quarter are still worth only face value, 25 cents. Uncirculated examples typically range from about $4 to $30 depending on grade. High-grade certified mint state 66 coins can fetch $100 to $200. At the very top, mint state 67 coins with excellent eye appeal have auction records of $1,000 to $4,000. Special mint set quarters with cameo or deep cameo finishes can bring anywhere from $50 to several $100s. Major errors and varieties, like dramatic double dies or wrong planchet strikes, remain the most valuable, with certain examples bringing well over $5,000 at major coin auctions. So the takeaway is this. The 1966 Washington quarter dollar may look common and ordinary, but under the right circumstances it can be worth a substantial amount of money. Always check the condition, look closely for errors, and if you believe you have a top-quality example, consider sending it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC to maximize its value. Thanks for watching and learning with me today. If you found this video helpful, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell for future coin videos. And most importantly, check your change, because you never know what valuable coins you might find hiding in plain sight.